Oh, what a tune that is. Beautiful Mess by Jason Mraz, and that is opening a very special edition of Bauhaus Radio, Sunday evening with Benji. I've got 3 special guests in the room, and that song, A Beautiful Mess by Jason Mraz, is the, what would you call it, the title song, the theme song to a play called Dear Emily, which is being shown on the 14th and 15th.
Yep, the 14th and the 15th of March.
Whose voice can I hear, you're asking? Well, that would be none other than Mr. Bobby Joins.
Yes, it is indeed.
There we go. Bosh, Bobby, please
much for having
introduce
me.
yourself. How's it going?
Yeah, so my name is Bobby Joins. I'm the director of Dear Emily, and I have my 2 amazing cast here.
Oh, you charmer. He's so kind.
Cast, please introduce yourselves.
I am Becky Costa. I wrote the play Dear Emily, and I am playing Emily.
My name is Rory Stroud, and I'm very honoured to be playing the part of Christopher in Dear Emily with these lovely people.
Wow, how exciting. Could you describe yourselves for the listeners as well, so they've got some sort of idea of what you look like, who you are in the flesh?
Okay. I've been told I look quite a lot like Harry Potter. So physically, I'd go for
Hey, you
that.
stole my one.
Oh,
I've
sorry.
been told I look like Harry, well, the
There you
Asian
go.
Harry
That's-
Potter.
Oh, okay,
So
that's what we all share. The legend that is Harry.
We've just got glasses.
Yeah, I know, it's just unfair stereotype, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've got, as you know, I've got some very good ginger friends, so sadly on
Yes.
nights out I get the sort of
Yeah,
Harry and Ron banter.
You got Hermione?
And sadly not, we're missing that as part of the crew. Maybe if
Just
Jesse
find
Milton goes brunette.
Brunette, that'd be
Yeah,
Hermione.
that's the aim
Yeah.
for next year.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I'm a second year, do theatre and English, been in a couple of plays here and there. But obviously Dear Emily is by far the best thing.
Oh, okay,
Everything's
nice.
associated with,
Yeah, of
you know,
course. Of course.
And yeah.
Brilliant.
lovely.
Thanks, Rory.
Thank you.
I don't look like Harry Potter.
Probably good for the play though.
Yeah.
I don't really have anyone I was ever compared to that I could give a comparison, but you know, got completely blanked on any celebrity.
I mean, think Beth from The Queen's Gambit. That's kind of a
no,
similar vibe.
that's just because you think I
sure.
like her.
That's
No.
actually that's a good
it's a
kind
banger
of
show.
I got
Yeah,
Amelia
Yeah,
Clarke
crushed it on Netflix.
in Game of Thrones, but that's only because I had bleach blonde hair and dark eyes.
These are pretty good comparisons. yeah.
These are all, none of these are scathing.
No,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Unlike me, which is just Harry Potter in a different font.
You look like every character. Yeah,
You know what, I like
Every character.
I still like John Lennon.
Sean
Yeah.
Lennon.
You know, he's what I called it.
To be fair, you grew the hair out a little bit. I can
Yeah.
very much see John Lennon.
Please don't.
I think it's the glasses as well. It's good.
Please don't
Yeah.
look like John Lennon.
Yeah.
I think that'd be quite good.
Please.
Yeah.
I'm
can see
getting
that.
conflicting.
No.
But please don't.
No.
I'm also getting Tintin.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've had that.
White dog.
I've also had
Adventures.
Milo from Atlantis.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every character.
Got quite a few, Bobby.
Yeah. How would you describe yourself, Bobby? What would you say you look like? What I meant was like just give your defining features. So I would have said I'm an Asian man with a blue beanie. That's what I would have gone for. But
Yeah.
I'm liking this comparison thing.
Okay, circular glasses, think Harry Potter as we've just said.
Yeah.
Waistcoat and shirt, really.
Basically, John Lennon.
And
short
nothing
hair.
else.
And
Yeah,
under that table.
The most
there is-
outrageous drip of all time.
Yeah. big dripper.
Yeah.
And you've already introduced the roles that you have in this wonderful production, but we don't really know what this production is. What's it about? It's called Dear Emily. Would one of you be able to tell the listeners what is the play about? Brief synopsis without giving too much away.
So, I mean, I've just kind of introduced it and then probably lead over to you, Becky,
Sure.
to actually talk a little bit more in depth about it. But fundamentally, it's hopefully a kind of realistic and quite an honest presentation of love in your 20s. Kind of love going through university and all the kind of struggles of being an adult and fresh going into adulthood and the kind of stresses that puts on a relationship.
Yeah, basically it's like a realistic portrayal of a relationship because especially in theatre and film I think it's very romanticised a lot of the time. So when Bobby came to me with this idea, your initial idea was not gritty at all, and then I was like, people don't want to see like a very lovey-dovey romance. Like, I'm going to make this quite uncomfortable. I made it more uncomfortable than I realised, but yeah, it's a realistic portrayal of love.
Oh, interesting. And do you think that's that's something that was, I don't know, without getting too deep and personal, something that was informed by your own experiences, or is it more just a matter of you wanting to put out like a message and saying, no, there's this sort of romanticisation of love, and we need to be more aware that there's other sides to it?
Definitely, that's 100% what I'm doing. However, the initial idea was Bobby and I wanted to write something, and I write what I know, so Christopher and Emily started off on draft one, like us, and then we took it way in the other direction, which means now we're having to defend everything. We're like, no, we're not this, we're not like this, I promise.
Yeah. I feel like Christopher's like, as a character, gotten kind of, which is really fun to act, gotten like worse and worse and like kind of more and more tricky.
Really?
So I want the public to know this is not reflective of
It's not me, I promise.
You're great.
Got to put it on the poster. This is not a representation
not based off real events.
Relationship. So how Bobby's directing? Obviously, you wrote it. How are you finding the process of directing it? Are you communicating a lot with Becky in terms of, you know, like what the creative vision is? Do you sort of collaborate on that, or do you take quite like a strong directing role?
So in terms of this production, I'm working alongside a co-director, Jessie Prince, who is utterly amazing at working with you guys. So they've taken more of a kind of movement choreographical approach, and I've taken more of a kind of technical based approach. Fundamentally, this is a production that's kind of centered around projection and kind of is quite tech heavy, and we really wanted that to come through quite a lot in the rehearsal process. So I've taken a bit of a stance on that, and Jessie has kind of helped to really kind of bring some of the workshops and the rehearsals to life with their exercises of like improvisation and stuff like that. As we're kind of nearing the show date, I think ETA 9 days now, goodness me.
Wow.
As we're moving kind of towards the 14th and the 15th, we're kind of collaborating more so together, and just striding to just put everything together and make sure everything harmonises. Which actually, as it speaks right now, is going really, really well. You mentioned the movement and the technology. Was that in your original draft, or is that something that's been added later on as the play sort of developed?
The movement was definitely added later on, but the technology was always a really big thing because you wanted to do something with projection, because you are the projection guy. So actually there was like inspiration from the get-go about projection that I didn't write very well, so we had to sort of work it out in the space.
Right, okay.
But yeah, no, projection-wise and technology-wise, it was always going to be very tech-heavy.
Yeah. And how have you found it as actors, Rory? I'm opening this one up to you as well. Sure. How have you found it working with those elements, like with projections and also with movement? I presume it's quite a physical piece. Have you done stuff like that before? And if not, like how are you finding that experience?
I mean, I'm somewhat lacking coordination-wise. So, like I'm not a real left and right. That's not my area. So that's been a need for me. I think it's literally just comes down to practical things of like, you can do the best acting ever, right? You can be really in the scene, do really well, but if the audience can't see your face, they're not going to get it. They're not going to be. You have to actually try and think about, even though it might not be real in the scene, making sure you're being like seen by the audience, because also the way we're staging it is we have the audience on two sides. So a lot of the monologues that I have, I'm kind of directing at the audience.
Okay.
And so when we have the projected element there as well, I'm then suddenly talking to the projected Emily, which is all well and good, but it's been the only slightly tricky thing is just because then you have to sort of like face away,
right?
And you don't want the audience to miss out on the emotions or kind of not understand what's happening.
Yeah, so you have to push all the emotion to one side of your face.
Exactly. Yeah, my left side is really okay. The right side's having a break. It's like having to sit outside. Yeah. It's having a coffee.
That's funny.
Yeah, so you just have to kind of think about those elements and make sure that the audience kind of get it and understand it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It sounds like there's this really interesting, powerful relationship between your two characters. And I think to portray that relationship in the way that you want that you wrote it, I guess you really have to find those characters and you get it down. Becky, I can imagine it's probably easier for you considering you know exactly what's going on in that character's head.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit more about the characterization. How have you found your characters? And this is for both of you. How did you find your characters? And was it difficult? Was there a process to it? What was the technique?
Don't go for it.
I mean, as you said, I didn't find it particularly hard. Like she's more complicated than I first realised when I wrote it.
Could you give a brief rundown? Sorry, of what who is your character?
Emily was a girlfriend of Christopher. She is from a very different background to his, which is a big like friction point of their relationship. She's a little bit like, she's a little bit snappy and a little bit ditzy.
Okay.
And she drinks a lot. It's a big plot point of the show. But yeah, no, she's clearly one of those people who's like quite a free spirit and quite doesn't like being tied down. So when her and Christopher end up sort of being tied down together, she takes it out on him. Neither of them are good people. It's not like a good person, bad person. They're both fundamentally flawed characters.
Okay,
yeah, very much.
As we all are, I guess.
Well, there you go. Very wise. I'd say Christopher is, he's sort of a bit of a control freak. He's kind of from quite a privileged background, and sometimes that means he says things that are quite flippant, or he sort of assumes he deserves things sometimes in relationships. And I think just with what you're saying about the process of like trying to come up with this character, initially it was definitely not hard, but like we would read through the script and be like, God, he's a bit of a brat in this. Like, it's a bit horrible. But in order to portray it convincingly, you have to try and put yourself in their shoes and try and find reasons for what and also try and recognise maybe the slightly uglier parts of yourself that might do something like that.
Right.
Times when you've done something where you go, actually, I know that wasn't the right thing to do, I know I overreacted.
Yeah.
And try and think about the headspace of that.
Yeah. I was going to say, I can imagine that must be a challenge. You're saying these are fundamentally flawed, not bad people, but not necessarily likeable people, tricky people. You're all lovely. You're all so nice. So I can imagine that was
fantastic person.
Funnily enough, when we were casting, we were auditioning people, and Rory came in, and when Bobby told me he got the part, I was like, oh, that's great, he's such a good actor, but he's way too likeable for this character.
You guys, very, very charming, all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
I was very, very pleased to get the part. Big on it.
No, that's it's great though that you've got those techniques and you've got those ways of, I guess, finding characters that it might not necessarily be as easy to relate to. I can imagine that does take quite a lot of emotional investment, a lot of energy. What do you do throughout the rehearsal process? And Bobby, this is open to you as well as the director. What do you do that sort of, because this is a big project, right? There's a lot going on, there's a lot of moving parts. Are there any certain things that you do, and this can be, in the context of the project or wider, like as actors, creatives, what do you do to sort of maintain your well-being, maintain your energy?
Well, we like to kind of kickstart every rehearsal with like check-ins and also kind of check-outs right at the very end. Generally how our rehearsals have kind of been is kind of 2 to 3 hour slots of really quite intensive work, whether or not towards the beginning of the process that being very intention based of, right, this is what's being said, this is the action, why are we doing this, why does Christopher move in the way that he does, why does he move at that particular point, stuff like that. So it's very mentally draining as a process, but now more so that we've got it on its feet, it's also quite a physically demanding piece. So regular kind of breaks and check-ins and check-outs is a really great way to assess with pretty much everyone in the room about the energy, the vibe, about them coming into the space, and then that vibe leaving the space as well.
Yeah.
I'm a big one for vibes really as well.
Vibes.
Yeah.
We love the vibes.
Bobby vibes.
Like, a lot of theatre practitioners and productions talk about energy and energy in a space. I prefer to kind of call it a vibe, just because I think it's a little bit more kind of chilled. And everyone kind of understands vibes, kind of bodily. So it's just really important for our thing.
That sounds like a great way to approach it. To be fair, I do know what you mean. Vibes. I think energy usually suggests a lot of intense. I love the term energy, but that probably makes sense considering the sort of I'm a rapper musician. I want energy. But for something like this, you need to have that nuance. You need to have the subtlety of a vibe.
Yeah, there's also a thing where like when you're relaxed, you kind of perform better. Which is like I was chatting to someone about just auditioning in general the other day and why it's kind of quite a tricky process. Is because like when you're auditioning, you're always a bit stealthy and you're a bit nervous, right? And then so you're not your best self because you're kind of there and you're in your head a bit, and that's like the number one enemy of acting. Is if you start thinking, why am I moving my hand, or you're not really in the scene, and that kind of screws it up. So what's nice is when you kind of relax and get into the scene, and with these rehearsals being so kind of built on relaxed and positive vibes, it means that you can just kind of be more authentic, and the scenes are better, and then you feel better. It's like a cycle of goodness.
Cycle. No, completely. Becky, yourself, are there any sort of techniques or methods that you use to keep that energy or keep those vibes going, those good vibes going?
For me, it's mostly consistent breaks. I always kind of have like my headphones in rehearsals, which helps if I'm like, I'm not feeling this, I need like a minute.
Yeah.
But one thing, interestingly enough, that Jesse does as a director, which I think is fantastic, and really helps me, is at the end of sessions that they run, they ask for roses, buds and thorns. And it's sort of like a rose is like something you thought went really well, bud is something that you can like work on for next time, and thorn is something you didn't like. Nice. I really hate warming up.
Really?
Warm-ups, especially in such an intimate... It's so awkward and I really, really hate it.
Yeah.
So every time, like, I'll have, like, a thorn and I'm like, I did not like that warm-up. And Jesse's like, okay, well, if you think of a warm-up, then we'll do the warm-up you want to do.
Yeah.
Which I think has been really healthy and really helpful.
Yeah. Do a lot of jumping around.
Is it? Yeah.
Jumping around, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of stupid running as well.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what sort of things do you do, like, physically to get warmed up? Like, you were mentioning... You know, sometimes you want to do a different warm-up. You have, like, you know, your own ideas for that sort of thing. What kind of thing?
It's a lot of jumping, a lot of silly jumping.
Silly jumping?
Silly jumping.
As opposed to, you know, serious jumping?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not wearing suits.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And then a lot of, because I've been, credit to some other shows and people as well, I've just kind of adopted some of my favourite warm-ups and like things throughout the years. And one of them, which I'm nicking from the fantastic Ellie Kilburn, is there's a sentence which is, hey, you up there, get down right now. But what you do is you say it and you picture something at the other side of the room. Yeah. You say it, and I'm not going to yell because I don't want to hurt any listeners. But you kind of got to project, and you emphasise a different word every time, and then you do it in different ways, like an angry way, kind of an affectionate way, as if you're like, old, young, yada yada. And it's sort of a good vocal thing to warm up and kind of mess around a bit. Wow,
nice. That sounds like a really good technique.
Yeah, you must have warm ups as well, right?
For singing, I don't do them enough. This is my issue. Yeah, I don't. This is why I end up with a sore throat most of the time, because I don't warm up. But it's you got the classic, the sirens and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, vocal warm ups. But yeah, nothing as exciting. What was it? Hey you up there?
Yeah, hey you up there, get down right now.
Okay.
You sort of split it up, so it's like, hey you up there, get down right now. And then you sort of, hey you up there, get down right now. And then you can speed it up, slow it down.
You could do like angry ones and chill ones.
Pretty much so,
Could you give us an example of like if I chuck a random mood at you?
Yeah,
do it. You do it like that?
Go for it.
Wistful.
Hey you, up there. Get down right now.
Oh, that was beautiful. Becky, can I chuck a mood at you?
Totally.
I want... You're waiting in a queue for a burrito. And the queue's so long. And channel that energy, channel that vibe and stick it into the warm-up for me, please.
Hey you, up there, get down right now.
If I was about to serve you a burrito, I would crack on.
Extra guac on that.
Yeah. Bobby, do you want one? Do you want
Oh yeah,
go on,
Bobby.
Might as well.
Spice it up.
You have been looking through a Spotify playlist, okay, like a random one, and you've just found like a track which you've never heard before, but it's like probably going to be your favourite track for the next month.
Okay. Hey you right there, get down right now.
Brilliant, that was so good. On the topic of Spotify and music, I am going to play another track. Have you guys got any recommendations, any tracks you want to listen to? If not, that's fine. I can play a little bit of... I'm going to play a bit of Dancing in the Moonlight by Top Loader. Why on earth not? And then we'll be back with some more questions shortly if my music decides to work, which it's not. So I am going to just keep singing and talking into the mic.
That's fantastic.
This is what the majority of the show ends up doing.
It's a shame James Tudor isn't here. He's doing an a cappella show tonight.
Oh, really?
And we could have gone to a rendition.
Right?
He was it?
Vocal jam.
We're going.
Oh,
yeah, we go.
Vocal jam.
Who do you know who's there, or is it you just kind of going?
Aisha, my
Who's
best
in
mate.
Pitch Fight.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Wow.
Oh,
there it is. There's the track.
Beautiful.
This is Dancing in the Moonlight, Top Loader. We'll be back shortly.